They discovered 7 shocking things you must abandon for a divine transformation. Few knew what truly happened that night. The moon hung high, casting eerie shadows over the ancient desert, as whispers of the miraculous filled the air. It was in this very place, under the flickering stars, that a divine encounter changed everything. The whispers spoke of a man known as Moses, wandering through the wilderness, burdened yet resolute, driven by a call that echoed through the ages. In the stillness of the night, a bush blazed with fire but was not consumed. How could such a thing occur? The flames danced, illuminating Moses' wide eyes, reflecting a soul torn by doubt. He was just a shepherd, a stutterer, a man shaped by the weight of his past. But here, in this sacred moment, he held the potential for the unimaginable, teetering on the edge of destiny. What did it mean to abandon everything he believed, his fears, his insecurities? Moses approached cautiously, his heart racing. What was he to surrender? Fear. Anger. The ghost of his lineage, stained by failure. Each step forward felt like wading through thick fog, doubt clinging to him like a shroud. The ground crackled beneath his feet, and the cool night air turned heavy, saturated with unsaid promises. Suddenly, the voice rang out, rich like thunder yet soft as a whisper, calling him to lead. Take off your sandals, for this place is sacred. Who could dare step into such an unknown? The ground felt both inviting and terrifying, a paradox where divine purpose met human vulnerability. The tension built palpably, the very air quivering with possibility. Through his trembling hands, Moses dropped the tattered sandals stripped of earthly ties. But what else would he have to shed? The weight of his choices loomed large. Would others follow? The voices of his people echoed in his mind, reflecting their suffering, their longing for freedom. The burden felt suffocating. Each decision carried the weight of generations. He looked up at the fire, where his reality flickered alongside dreams yet unrealized. The dilemma clawed at him. Could abandoning his past mean finding a future? How could one man carry the hope of millions, thrust into a destiny so grand? And just then, the flames shifted, swirling with life, revealing shadows, figures whispering secrets from beyond. What stories lay hidden within those flames? What divine revelations awaited those daring enough to confront their fears? A silence fell over the scene, thick and charged, the air crackling with anticipation. Was Moses ready to discover what it meant to let go, to embrace the unknown? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With the flickering flames casting shadows that danced like spirits upon the desert floor, Moses felt an energy surge through him, a soft yet commanding tide that brushed against the walls he had built around his heart. There, in that moment, between his fears and the fire, he could sense the weight of a world waiting for liberation, and yet, within him stirred the heavy chains of doubt. Who am I to stand against Pharaoh? A mere shepherd, a man forged in uncertainty, he whispered, his voice almost swallowed by the ethereal winds that surrounded the holy ground. The fire crackled, as if in response, sending sparks into the night sky where they twinkled like distant stars, ancient witnesses to the story unfolding beneath them. He gazed once more into the depths of the flame, and it seemed to twist and coil with life, revealing not only the future but also the echoes of the past. What memories lived in him, pushing against the fabric of his being? He saw visions of the Israelites, their faces lined with despair, their voices raised in cries for salvation. Could his heart, burdened by regret and self-doubt, truly be the vessel for their unyielding hope? The voice spoke again, close yet echoing through the realms of eternity. I have seen the affliction of my people, it resonated, each word a hammer striking the anvil of his conviction. I am sending you to Pharaoh for the sake of my children. Then came the question swirling around him as he confronted his fears once more. Would he trust in the unseen? In his own inadequacies? Or would he allow the flame of divinity to shine through his murky doubts? As the reality of his calling deepened, a shroud of fear began to cloak him again. What if he failed? What if he stumbled and faltered before those whose lives hung in the balance? The visions continued to emerge, the slave masters, the cries of mothers, the hopeful faces of children. Each one seemed to pull him closer to the truth he desperately needed to confront. Surrendering his fears was not a choice but a necessity if he wished to embrace the purpose laid before him. Yet, he hesitated, caught in a web of uncertainty. But I cannot speak well, not with clarity nor confidence, he protested, feeling the weight of inadequacy settle heavy in his chest. In that moment of vulnerability, there was a flicker within the whisper of divine reassurance wrapped around his heart like the softest touch, reminding him that he was chosen not for his strengths but for the very flaws he carried. Who made the mouth? The voice echoed with divine authority. Do what I command, and I shall be with you. A silence fell over the sacred ground again, filled with the palpable energy of possibilities, a weighty invitation to choose courage over resignation, to break free from the shackles of what was familiar. Moses closed his eyes and let the truth wash over him, weaving through his very essence. Was he ready to confront the shadows, the voices of his past that told him he wasn't enough? Could he abandon the identity shaped by years of self-doubt for something far more divine? As the moment swelled, he opened his eyes, and the flames flickered brighter, illuminating a path drenched in uncertainty yet alight with potential. A myriad of questions danced through his mind, lingering like the embers in the night. What if surrendering meant discovering a strength he never knew existed? What would become of him, of his people, if he dared to dream alongside that divine fire? And as the stars twinkled above, Moses stood on the precipice of decision. Was he prepared to step forward, leaving behind the shadows of his past? Or would he remain holed up in the shadows, caged by fear? As the night deepened, the desert air hung thick with the promise of change. Moses stood entranced by the flames that lit up the shadows, his heart a tempest of emotions. The silence that followed the voice seemed to seep into the very marrow of his bones, amplifying the unshakable truth that lay before him, a mission which felt greater than his fragile existence. The fire continued to dance, and he felt a magnetic pull toward it, as if the very essence of the Almighty was woven into its flickering ribbons. His mind raced through memories of yesteryear, the laughter of his brother Aaron, the innocent joy of his childhood, and the sheer weight of his guilt for having fled from Egypt. The wilderness had become both his sanctuary and his prison, yet now it beckoned him to break free. With a drawn breath, Moses considered the multitude of unanswered questions that swirled within him. What must he abandon to step into his full purpose? The chains of self-doubt, forged by years of feeling small and insignificant. The echoes of fear that whispered he would never be enough. Was it not time to transform these burdens into strength, to allow the fire within to guide him? Suddenly, he recalled the stories shared by Hebrew elders, tales of faith that shimmered with the light of hope, tales of men and women who had stepped forward with only the belief that they were tools for divine intervention. Could he, too, become a vessel for change, despite his flaws? The longing within him grew, a yearning not just for his own freedom but for that of his people, struggling under the weight of oppression. As the flames crackled, another thought took seed in his heart. Surrendering the identity that had defined him might unlock realms of purpose he had never imagined. What if, by relinquishing the comfort of his fears, he could transform into a leader courageous enough to confront Pharaoh? What if his journey to liberation began not with the strength of arms but with the strength of spirit? A rustle echoed in the distance, and he turned, heart racing, to see a small herd of sheep grazing nearby, oblivious to the profound shift happening within him. They represented a part of his life he was both thankful for yet ready to leave behind. As a shepherd, he had tended to their needs, guiding them away from danger, always careworn and uncertain of their safety. Was it possible now that he could embrace this role on a greater scale, shepherding an entire people out of darkness? The silence of the night seemed to echo back at him questions of its own. What would it mean for Moses to lead the Israelites to freedom? To stand before Pharaoh, a man whose heart was hardened, armed only with the promises of the one who had chosen him. Would Pharaoh's power bend before a mere shepherd gifted with a tongue unsteady? With each thought, he felt an expanding sense of purpose intertwined with the grit of vulnerability. What if laying down his fear meant unleashing a force of divinity capable of shattering chains? He had spent so long entangled in self-doubt, hadn't he exhausted every excuse that held him firmly in place? The fire continued to beckon, reminding him that these unanswered queries were stepping stones to his destiny. Finally, he took a tentative step forward, the heat of the flames warming his resolve. But as he edged closer to the flames, another question pressed upon him: could someone with such a clouded history rise to the occasion of shaping a future? What would it look like for him to lead when he felt so unworthy? Moses gazed into the vibrant blaze, searching for clarity in its depths. Would he find what he needed to ignite a divine transformation within himself? Or would he let the shadows of his past continue to shroud him as he gazed into the light? The path ahead remained uncertain, yet the flame flickered with enigmatic promise. What had he truly to abandon, and was he ready to embrace the pivotal choices that could change the course of his life and those of the generations to come? As dawn broke, painting the horizon in hues of orange and gold, Moses found himself standing at the very threshold of an inner reckoning. The cool air wrapped around him, momentarily softening the heat of bewilderment that had engulfed him during the night. He looked to the ground, where the ashes of the fire crackled gently. It was as if remnants of his former self lay scattered beneath his feet, waiting to be reborn with each rising sun. The promise of new beginnings had often emerged as a beacon of hope. Yet, there in that quiet moment, alongside the remnants of consumed wood, Moses grappled fiercely with the impending demands of his destiny. The call to lead was loud and clear, but nestled within his heart were remnants of doubt, each one a chain forged in the fires of despair and self-reproach. He reviewed the moments that had shaped him, the beatings of the Egyptian taskmasters ringing in his ears, the cries of his people echoing in the chambers of his memory. Would these haunting images dissipate with the dawn, or were they the very catalyst that could propel him toward action? As he stood there, the air thick with anticipation, a thought emerged: what if these past wounds could metamorphose into the very source of his strength? The awareness settled on him like an aura of acceptance. In drawing from his history, the pain he had endured could transform into a compassionate force that ignited hope within the hearts of the Israelites. He envisioned himself not just as a shepherd of sheep, but as a shepherd of souls, tasked with leading his people from the shadow of despair into the light of deliverance. Yet, the challenge remained: how to reconcile the weight of his past with the calling of his present. Suddenly, he felt a gentle whisper in the depths of his spirit, urging him to look beyond what lay before him. The horizon beckoned, a vast expanse filled with untold journeys awaiting discovery. Within the landscape of his heart, Moses began to unearth 7 profound truths that seemed crucial for his transformation. The first was the surrender of isolation, for no leader could stand alone. The wisdom of community would serve as his bastion. Secondly, he recognized the need to release his anger. It had swallowed him whole and diverted attention from his true purpose. With each revelation, it became clearer that the fears of inadequacy, the third truth to embrace, would only fuel paralysis. Instead, embracing vulnerability could be a source of profound strength. Fourthly, he realized he must forgive himself for the life he had lived. Grace was the pathway to empowerment, essential for leading those he hoped to free. As he moved through the truths, the fifth whispered of doubt and awareness that acknowledging his weaknesses could illuminate a path toward deeper faith. The sixth truth crystallized into clarity: the acceptance of the blessings of his past would enrich his future. Each experience, no matter how painful, could serve to mold him into the leader his people needed. Lastly, the seventh truth rang like a bell within him: love, unstinting, selfless, and courageous love, woven into every decision he would make. Moses inhaled deeply, inhaling a sense of renewal. Each abandoned truth could spring forth a divine awakening within him, piece by piece reshaping the man he had been into the leader he was called to be. Yet, amidst these realizations, a niggling question lingered at the edge of his consciousness: was he truly prepared to embrace these changes, to cultivate such radical transformation not just for himself but for his people? In the stillness of that early morning light, Moses pondered what awaited him. Would the release of these burdens enable him to step into the role of liberator and ignite a movement of deliverance? Could he truly shepherd an entire nation into freedom, while grappling with the shadows of his past? The fire had flickered out, but the warmth it left behind promised a journey that began within. How might embracing these truths shape not only his destiny, but the destiny of the many whose cries for freedom had risen at last to the heavens? As the sun ascended further into the azure sky, its light spilled across the landscape, accentuating each contour of the land. Moses felt the warmth on his face, like a gentle affirmation of the shift that had begun within. The shadows of doubt were swept away by this divine illumination, but the weight of responsibility loomed heavier than ever. He turned from the quiet ashes of his previous life and set his sights toward the camp of the Israelites. With each deeper deliberate crunch of sand and pebble beneath his feet, Moses carried the burden of revelation and uncertainty. As he approached the multitude of his people, their faces were etched with weariness, yet their eyes burned with an ember of hope. The collective sigh of despair, almost palpable in the air, felt like a heavy tapestry woven from years of oppression, longing, and despair. Moses hesitated, for there in their gazes lay unspoken expectations, as if they could sense the internal battle raging within him. What would he say? How would he communicate the breadth of his newfound understanding without exposing the lingering fissures of his own faltering spirit? As he took his place among them, he sensed the uncertainty mirrored in their expressions. The Israelites, too, were caught in a liminal space, balancing on the edge of hopelessness and the promise of freedom. Their lives had been molded by the cruelty of their captors, fracturing their once unbreakable resolve. It was at that moment, amidst the crowd, that Moses realized his path lay not solely in leading, but in sharing vulnerability, authenticity, and building a bridge of connection to earn their trust. With a steadying breath, he began to speak, his voice echoing across the sandy settlement. Brothers and sisters, the weight of our suffering has forged us into resilient beings. We have endured the lash of the taskmaster's whip and the bitterness of captivity, yet here we stand, united, vibrating with the pulse of something greater, a longing for liberation. As his words wove through the crowd, he noticed the gradual shift in demeanor, the stooped shoulders rose a bit higher, the shadows of hopelessness began to dissolve. He continued, I stand before you not merely as your leader, but as one who bears the scars of his own journey rife with doubt, shame, and confusion. Yet, it is in these very trials that I have unearthed divine truths. The murmurs of curiosity rippled among the crowd as Moses recounted the profound realizations he had embraced: the wisdom of community, the grace of forgiveness, the pulse of love. Each truth resonated, drawing nods and soft affirmations from those gathered, their hearts beginning to open like fragile petals being warmed by the sun. But as he spoke, a seed of fear took root within him. The fear of inadequacy loomed large, whispering discouragement against the chorus of hope that was rising. Was he truly equipped to guide them into such transformative change? Could a man burdened with his own past lead a nation toward the promise of a brighter future? As silence fell, punctuated only by the whispers of the wind, a compelling thought sparked in Moses' heart. Perhaps it was not about being perfect or wholly prepared, but rather about embracing the journey alongside his people. It became clear that divine transformation was not a solitary path, it formed a collective tapestry woven through shared trials, vulnerabilities, and triumphs. Just as a lone thread would unravel without the support of others, so too would his journey falter without the strength of those around him. They would lean on each other, offering strength when needed, assurance in moments of doubt. Moses glanced toward the horizon, the endless expanse now stretching beyond the individual burdens they each carried. Together, could they forge a path toward freedom, embracing vulnerability, love, and empathy as they journeyed into the unknown. With renewed determination, he resolved to not only lead but to walk alongside his people, to nurture an unbreakable collective bond as they ventured into their destiny. Yet even as hope burgeoned in his heart, a lingering question nestled in his spirit: would they all be willing to relinquish their chains and emerge transformed, or would the weight of their past still hold them hostage, shackled in fear and trepidation? In the face of this profound uncertainty, Moses wondered how even the most daunting obstacles could shift with the power of unity and love. Would they discover that their true strength lay not in perfect leaders, but in the fierce commitment to collective liberation? As the murmurs of hope began to settle over the encampment, a stillness permeated the air, transforming the chaotic energy of the crowd into something more profound, an opportunity for reflection. In this quiet, Moses felt the weight of ancient stories pressing against his consciousness, tales of ancestors who had walked similar roads through adversity and doubt. They had faced turbulent waters, scorching deserts, and the trials of faith, always searching for the promise of something beyond their current reality. In that moment of interlude, Moses recalled the traditions of his people, stories of their origin, steeped in the divine promise granted to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Each patriarch had wandered with a promise yet to be fulfilled, just as he found himself longing for something greater amidst the sands of Midian. He realized that the transformation he sought was interwoven with their history, their heritage, a call to reclaim the spirit of resilience that thrived within their DNA like a flickering flame. As he looked into the faces of those around him, stories began to emerge in his mind, ancestral whispers that urged him to guide his people toward not just physical liberation but spiritual awakening. To embark on this journey of transformation, he spoke again, his voice firm yet tender: we must first identify and confront the chains that bind us, those habits and beliefs that have kept us imprisoned in our minds and hearts. Moses could feel their grappling curiosity as he continued, there are 7 burdens among us, tangled in the fabric of our existence, that we must recognize and release to pave the way for divine transformation. Each point began to unfold in his mind like petals revealing the core of a flower, and he felt an invisible thread guiding him to articulate them. First, we must abandon despair, that heavy cloak that has long concealed our identity, for within despair, we lose sight of our true selves. The crowd's faces began to brighten as if they had glimpsed the first rays of sunrise after a long night. Second, we must relinquish the inner critic, those voices that tell us we are not enough. In this sacred moment, let us bind together to lift one another's spirits instead of tearing them down. Soft nods echoed across the assembly, and Moses felt their spirits awakening. The third is fear, a primal reaction to the unknown that can paralyze our spirit. Instead, let us choose courage, the kind that ignites action in the face of uncertainty. A wave of warmth washed over him as the crowd seemed to lean in, eager to embrace this new perspective. Next, we must let go of complacency, it is stifling to the soul. Life opens to those who dare to step into the unknown with faith. He paused briefly, searching the crowd for the flickers of understanding in their eyes. Fifth, we must nullify bitterness, for it sows division among us, clouding our hearts and dampening the joys of unity. Forgiveness is a balm for the soul. A collective sigh permeated the atmosphere, as if something previously unacknowledged had found its voice. The sixth is pride, which often erects barriers between our hearts. Our strength lies not only in individual triumphs but in our ability to uplift one another. The unity in their gaze seemed to strengthen with every word spoken, fueling the divine connection. And finally, we must abandon ignorance, for it is the darkness that keeps us blind to each other's struggles. We must cultivate understanding through compassion, illuminating the shadows that cling to our hearts. The ambience became heavy with a sacred determination, as if the collective breath of the Israelites strengthened with each acknowledgement. As Moses concluded, a sacred silence enveloped the camp, radiating a sense of shared purpose. Each individual felt not just spoken to but seen, their burdens newly illuminated amidst the cascading sands of time. In this sacred space, they were not alone, yet, amid this awakening, a profound question stirred within him, echoing in the depths of his spirit. Would they find the courage to let go of the very identities that had sustained them through adversity, to enter a realm of divine possibility? Could they embrace vulnerability, casting away the shadows of doubt as they stepped boldly toward a future filled with hope? As the echoes of Moses' words settled like dust upon the sandy ground, the Israelites breathed in the depth of the moment, poised between the unknown and the familiar. It was as if they stood on the precipice of an unseen chasm, staring into the vastness of potential yet to be realized. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows that danced upon their faces that now bore not only weariness but also burgeoning hope. In the heavy stillness that followed, Moses sensed that more was needed beyond the words he had shared. It was not merely the relinquishing of burdens that would bring his people close to the divine, but the embracing of the truths hidden within their very hearts. A realization dawned upon him: these 7 burdens, though significant, were reflections of deeper truths waiting to be recognized. Their liberation was not only external but a profound inward journey that would shape their identity as a nation. Gather closer, he beckoned, his voice carrying over the soft rustling of the evening breeze. The camp shifted, curious yet eager, and they formed a circle, a sacred gathering under the watchful stars. Beyond the chains we must shed, there are 7 revelations that, when embraced, will reclaim our spirits. With a gentle breath, Moses began with the first revelation. In the abandonment of despair, we discover the beauty of resilience. It is in our struggle that the seeds of strength are sown. Like gold refined in the fire, our trials prepare us. The murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly, their hearts ignited by the promise of purpose rooted within their pain. Secondly, he continued, as we silence the inner critic, we unearth our worthiness. We are fashioned in the image of the Creator and, as such, each of us carries a spark of the divine. He watched as women and men held each other's gazes, recognizing their shared dignity and unspoken heritage, a bond sealed by the divine breath that animated their very being. Fear, our third revelation, holds the key to courage. When faced, it transforms into a powerful ally, urging us to act. In our moments of doubt, let us seek the light of divine guidance that illuminates our paths. Moses felt the electric energy of purpose wash over the crowd, each face reflecting a glimmer of eagerness to face their own shadows. Complacency, fourth, teaches us that stagnation is not an option. The divine calls us to action, to seek not just the promised land but also the promise within. The sighs of recognition string together like a melody, lifting their collective spirit towards a brighter horizon. As he ventured deeper into their enlightenment, Moses spoke of forgiveness, the fifth revelation. This sacred act frees us from the ties of the past. It allows us to build bridges rather than walls. As we forgive, we pave the pathway to our shared healing. Many among the assembly found tears welling, the burdens of old grievances softening in the embrace of compassion. Next, pride sows the seeds of division, but our strength lies in humility. It is through our upliftment of one another that we reveal the strength of community. They all nodded in understanding, a realization forging a new resolve within their hearts, a commitment to unity over individuality. And first, ignorance, that which blinds us to the truth. As we cultivate understanding, we weave a tapestry of love that transcends our differences, illuminating our shared humanity. With every word, Moses could feel the spirit of transformation subtly wrapping around them, as if the air itself whispered promises of renewal. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in breathtaking hues, it seemed time itself held its breath, waiting for what was yet to come. In that sacred moment of awakening, a deeper question stirred within Moses' spirit. Beyond the surrendered burdens, would they possess the faith to embrace these revelations, to allow themselves to be forever transformed? How might each life, intertwined like the roots of a great tree, blossom anew as they journeyed together toward their destiny? As the night wrapped its cool embrace around the camp, the crackling of the fire echoed softly in the quietude, a backdrop to the gathering's profound introspection. The flickering flames danced in rhythm to the heartbeat of the people, casting shadows that mirrored their own struggles and aspirations. Moses, seeing their rapt attention, felt a surge of resolve. There was still much to uncover in the dim light of their collective consciousness. Dear children of Israel, he began anew, his voice steady yet infused with urgency, these revelations do not end here. They are but the first brushstrokes of a grand portrait still waiting to emerge. With each burden lifted, we ascend, yet each ascent requires the grit to climb against the tide of our fears. Thus, let us delve deeper into the fabric of our existence, the first ember of intrigue ignited as Moses spoke of renewal and awakening not just from slumber but from the state of being rooted in old identities. What you must abandon first is the fear of the unknown, for it is a shadow that can too easily eclipse the light of potential. Will you choose to fear the unfamiliar, or will you embrace the adventure that lies ahead? The very promised land we seek is shrouded in mystery. His eyes met each face, searching for the flicker of acknowledgement. The audience shifted, the weight of his words settling like a tangible presence among them. His expression softened, inviting contemplation. In clinging to the past, we turn our backs on divine opportunity. When we release the heavy stones of yesterday, we unearth the treasures of today. What memories haunt you that would keep you bound? In releasing them, what joy might you find? A gust of wind swept through, carrying away a few stray leaves, and Moses couldn't help but draw the connection. Consider these leaves, uprooted and dancing to their own rhythms. They remind us that in surrender lies freedom. By loosening our grip on what was, we learn to sway effortlessly with the winds of change. Next, he spoke of the illusion of control, a comfort many clung to with desperation. Letting go of this illusion opens a pathway to trust, he encouraged. Trust in one another and trust in the divine, which guides our steps even when the path is obscured. Do you realize how often you divert your own journey because of a relentless desire to foresee every conclusion? What if the beauty of life resides in its very unpredictability? The flicker of curiosity blossomed into whispers of revelation as Moses continued. And what of anger, dear siblings? It erects walls instead of bridges. We must forsake the bitterness that stains our hearts. It is not in the expression of this pent-up emotion that we find power but in the quiet surrender of understanding. Can you dare to see the grace even in those who have wronged you? Moses felt a cry rising within him, a communal yearning for healing that transcended personal grievances. Behold, as you cultivate empathy, you reclaim your power, for anger holds no dominion over a compassionate heart. What understanding might bloom should you choose to nurture reconciliation rather than resentment? The gatherers now leaned in, faces illuminated not just by the flames but by the flickers of hope igniting within. They hung upon his every word, feeling the weight of transformation resting upon them like a cloak. And last among these burdens, he paused, letting the silence linger, is the abandonment of doubt in our purpose. Each of you is a thread woven into this great tapestry. When you question your significance, you obscure the beauty of the whole. What if your very existence is aimed at fulfilling a divine purpose beyond your comprehension? The fire crackled again, sending sparks into the starry expanse above, a reminder of possibilities both near and far. The night deepened, shrouded in a sacred atmosphere, and Moses sensed that the divine mystery still lingered just beyond their grasp. As we journey toward the dawn of this new identity, can we embrace the unknown? Might our willingness to let go of what we cling to reveal a path unseen, leading us closer to the sacred promise? What wondrous things await at the threshold of our faith? As the fire continued to crackle and whisper in the quiet night, the encroaching darkness seemed to cradle the gathered Israelites in a cocoon of expectancy. The murmurs of contemplation filled the air, intertwining with the tendrils of smoke. Each soul wrestled with the revelations delivered by Moses, pondering the weight of their own burdens and the freedom of letting go. Moses sensed a deep stirring within the hearts of his people, a collective yearning for understanding that transcended the mere desire for a promised land. Now, dear ones, he spoke gently, as we dwell in this sacred moment, let us illuminate the deeper shadows of our existence. Each fear, each doubt, these do not merely hold us back, they veil the sacred truths that walk beside us. Can you listen for the quiet wisdom that whispers from within? Shall we, together, seek the gifts wrapped in our trials? A faint breeze rustled the leaves above, a reminder of the unseen forces surrounding them, and Moses felt the pulse of the divine weaving through the fabric of the night. Some of you may feel lost, adrift in a sea of questions. But, my friends, it is within this very tumult that growth flourishes. Consider this. What if our struggles are but stepping stones to something greater, a journey not just towards a place but towards transformation of self? At this, a murmur rose from the crowd, a ripple of recognition. Moses pressed on, his voice taking on a reflective tone. We often search for answers, yet in seeking, we may miss the surprising beauty of the questions themselves. Each question is a lantern in the dark, illuminating unseen paths. How can we embrace our doubts not as shackles but as invitations to deeper understanding? What wisdom might these moments of uncertainty reveal to us? The faces before him varied, some etched in lines of concern, others gaining light with a glimmer of insight. As we move forward, he continued, we must acknowledge that our past does not define our future. Do you hear that? Each misstep, each moment of despair, is an opportunity. In each failure lies the seed of resilience, waiting for the nourishment of hope to thrive. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle among them like a gentle rain. Each of you is endowed with a divine spark, a testament to the intricate design of creation. In this grand tapestry, we are not mere threads but dynamic forces, capable of weaving new patterns in the very fabric of existence. This leads us to ask ourselves, how do we tap into our creative spirit? What beautiful stitches might we craft in the face of adversity? As if in answer, a shooting star blinked across the firmament, eliciting gasps of wonder from the onlookers. In that instant, a sense of unity filled the space around the fire, hearts climbing toward hope. The beauty of stars lies not solely in their distance but in the stories they tell, igniting our dreams when all seems dark. Could our own struggles shine similarly, guiding us through our darkest nights? Moses felt the air thrum with the potential energy, the flames leaping higher as if to signal the stirring hope within them. Remember, divine transformation requires not just surrender, but also active participation. We must allow the sacred mystery to unfold, embracing change as the very core of creation. As we become willing to reshape our paths, what new insights will blossom? The crowd, now fully enraptured, exuded an air of eager anticipation. Yet, there remained a question woven into the night: what if their greatest struggle was the very act of acceptance? To welcome change, they might need to relinquish not only their burdens but also the comfort of familiarity. Friends, Moses challenged gently, what holds you back from stepping boldly into the unfolding journey ahead? Can you dare to imagine the possibilities that await when we trust the rhythm of divine timing? As the evening deepened, an ocean of uncertainty enveloped the gathering, yet amid this, there surfaced a profound hope. The night was but a threshold, a sacred invitation to something greater. With hearts wide open, they stood on the cusp of revelation. What awaited them as they prepared to step boldly into the unknown? In the hush of the dawn, a sacred light began to break over the desert landscape, illuminating the path that had been laid before Moses and his people. The air buzzed with anticipation, and as the first rays of sunlight spilled onto the encampment, they awakened not just the weary bodies, but something deep within their souls, a longing for freedom that thrummed in the depths of their being. Moses stood at the forefront, his heart heavy yet lifted by the promise that hung like the morning dew. Each face reflected a tapestry of emotions: hope, fear, uncertainty, but above all, a burgeoning belief in their collective destiny. He felt the weight of his calling settle upon him, pressing gently yet firmly, urging him onward. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the cusp of transformation. Let us rise, he called, his voice cutting through the stillness. And let the sun bear witness to our communion with the divine. We stand not just as individuals, but as a nation bound by the threads of our story, woven together through shared struggle and unyielding hope. He could feel the stirrings of life pulsate through the gathering. It was as if the very earth beneath him resonated with their collective heartbeat. With every step he took, Moses could sense the walls that had confined them slowly begin to crumble. He raised his hands to the skies, and the morning sun draped them in warmth, a holy embrace that ignited courage in their hearts. Today, we embark on a journey of liberation that transcends physical chains, he declared, his voice reverberating like thunder. We must break free from the bonds of despair, replace bitterness with forgiveness, and exchange ignorance for the luminous understanding that light can only thrive in the darkest corners. Amidst the crowd, the echoes of past grievances and fears began to dissolve as individuals found solace among one another, recognizing the power of unity. They took turns recounting their personal stories of suffering, intermingled with stories of hope, of ancestors who had risen from the ashes, of dreams long buried now coaxed back to life. A flame of understanding flickered between them, uniting their voices in a harmonious symphony of shared experience. Each confessional act became an ember, igniting the hope that had been suppressed for too long, until a fire of collective purpose began to blaze. Moses listened as the words flowed from hearts that had been aching in silence. The realization dawned upon him that the very act of sharing their burdens was the key to their liberation. Each confession cast away the shadows of isolation, allowing divine love to seep through the cracks, healing wounds that had festered through generations. Suddenly, beyond the horizon, a vast expanse unfurled, the promised land that lay hidden until now. It was a vision, not merely of a place, but of their potential. Together, they could forge lives built upon the foundations of self-belief and shared aspirations. In this vision, Moses saw himself not merely as a leader but as a conduit through whom divine transformation was flowing. Friends, he urged with newfound urgency, we have spent too long nursing our wounds and nursing the fear of our inadequacies. This day, we make a choice. A choice to abandon the fears that whisper in our ears, urging us to retreat. We are not defined by our past failures, we are defined by our willingness to embrace the unknown. The crowd surged with renewed energy, leaning into the promises that drip like honey from his lips. Together, we shall challenge Pharaoh. We shall stand against the torrent of doubt and emerge as a force of liberation. Be mindful, our exodus is not merely of the body, but of the spirit. Moses stretched out his arms wide, feeling the energy of their collective faith coalesce into an illuminating force. He could see the flickers of doubt turn to sparks of belief, illuminating the path before them like stars lighting a night sky. And with each embrace of hope, the ties that tethered them to despair began to unravel. Their march began as a tricklier hesitant step forward from fear into possibility, but soon grew into a torrent of collective courage, sweeping them toward the horizon illuminated by the dawn. Leave behind your chains, Moses urged, his voice a clarion call echoing through the spaces between them. Let us arise, march together, a community of seekers, dreamers, and believers. As they traversed through the shifting sands, their burdens lifted, and Moses encouraged them to share what they would leave behind. With each confession, with every act of release, the chains of yesterday were shed, and in their place bloomed seeds of divine promise. Hearts soared, spirits intertwined, and before long, their fears felt uninhibited by the destiny they had chosen together. Emerging from the chaotic past, they gathered strength from the stories they breathed, the struggles transforming into the fuel that would propel them into a future unbounded by the limitations of the known. The fire that began in Moses had spread, and each step they took sparked new flames of hope, flickering into life. As they broke farther into the unfolding mystery of their journey, the beauty of divine transformation enveloped them, no longer mere followers but co-creators of their destinies. And in the soft light of morning, a powerful revelation unfolded within them. Liberation resides not only in the physical realm but within the heart, a sacred yearning to embody love, courage, and resilience in the face of adversity. The winds whispered through the leaves, echoing the ancient truths of their lineage, and for the first time in centuries, they felt the chains break, a global heartbeat united. Together, they chanted their newfound mantra, testament to their resilience: we are renewed. We are liberated. And so, they marched onward, their cries becoming an anthem, echoing through the corridors of history, an indelible mark of faith and collective transformation now etched forever in the annals of time. Each sound reverberated into the heavens, declaring their commitment to not just survive, but to thrive, to abandon the shadows of their past and step boldly into the brilliance of their divine purpose. For it was here, in the expanse of the desert dawn, that faith transcended the confines of their hearts, uniting them in a divine symphony of rebirth and awakening that promised to ripple through generations yet to come, echoing, ever echoing, the song of liberation.